I've never shown anyone how to make this before. I've never even given this recipe to anybody. It is my own recipe that I've perfected over the course of many, many years of practice. And it is a delicious bolognese. I don't know if it's northern or southern Italian. Frankly, I don't really care. I'm not Italian. I didn't have a nonna who made this for me. In fact, my grandma probably didn't even know what the hell bolognese even was. In fact, I didn't have a nonna. I had a babushka, and she made borscht. So when I make this bolognese, I make it for my friends and for my family, and everybody loves it. And you probably need much less than you would think you would need for such a rich, delicious, and what many people think is a time-consuming dish. It'll probably take you at the most, an hour to an hour and a half, including your prep. The secret to a good bolognese is good ingredients. In fact, I would even go so far as to say that the secret to a good bolognese is don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. So what you're gonna need for this is some very good quality ground beef. You could substitute turkey, you could substitute lamb, you could substitute chicken, you could substitute venison, wild boar, pork, whatever you get your hands on as long as it's ground, okay? Which I happen to have here. I'm using a lean ground beef, not extra lean. I want a little bit of fat in there. You can always control the amount of fat, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And I'm using a grass-fed beef. And you want to use products that your budget can afford. I happen to be able to get really, really good grass-fed beef from a local grocer for very, very cheap. In fact, it's cheaper than the regular stuff that I would get at any other grocery store. So I use grass-fed. But again, use what you can afford. Next, you're going to need the holy trinity. That is some onions diced, some celery diced, and some carrot. But do not dice the carrot, shred the carrot. You want the carrot to be shredded because all you want the carrot to do is add a little bit of sweetness to it. We're not looking for any crunch, we're not looking for any texture, we're looking for the sweetness of the carrot. And when you shred it like this, it starts to dissolve in the sauce. You want a lot of garlic, and I'm talking like a full head of garlic. And I don't chop the garlic, I just smash it, peel the skin, and leave it in these big chunks. You want a can of tomato paste. I'm using an organic one. It's really cheap. This is like $1, I don't know. You want 3 fillets or fillets of anchovies, packed in a little bit of that oil. What it does is give a little bit of that briny, salty flavor that I really like. You want some fresh thyme, good quality chicken stock. Ideally, you want to use a homemade stock, but if you're in a time crunch, you don't have any on hand, then go to the store and grab a good quality chicken stock. Some salt and pepper, and at the very end I'm going to add some chili flakes. I like things spicy. This is completely optional. If you don't want spice, skip the chili flakes. So get yourself a heavy bottom pot like a Dutch oven or a casserole. Put it on a really high heat, almost about as high as you can get it. What we want to do is we want to brown the beef first. That's the #1 step. A lot of people like to add their veggies first, saute those around, and then brown the beef. Do not do that, people. That is not how you get flavor. The idea here is almost like we want to braise that ground beef. So what we want to do is add a little bit of crust to it. That's going to give a lot of flavor, a lot of really, really good texture to the dish. And then we're going to remove it and then add our vegetables. Once our pot is really, really nice and hot, a little bit of olive oil. Take your beef, start to add it in there, spreading it around. Once your beef is brown, take a slotted spoon and set it aside to a bowl. Now you could either leave all of that fat that's in there, the rendered fat from the beef, or you could remove it at this point. I like to leave it in there because I'm going to brown the next batch in that fat. Now at this point, there's a little bit too much of that fat that's rendered down there for my liking, so I'm going to drain it. So I've removed all of that fat. If those little chunks of beef stay in there, don't worry, that's actually a really, really good thing. You can leave some of those little beef crumbs. They'll start to really get nice and crispy and golden, and they'll start to keep cooking as the time goes on. So a little bit of extra virgin olive oil back in the pot. Garlic goes right in. I'm just going to cook the garlic for maybe 30 seconds to a minute, just until it gets fragrant. You can start smelling it. Garlic has a tendency to burn really quickly, so that's why I like to keep it in these big chunks. Prevents it from burning. As soon as I can start to smell that garlic, that's when I want to start putting in my anchovies. Anchovies go in. Stir that around. Keep stirring the garlic so that it doesn't burn. Oh, it smells amazing, and all the garlic is starting to perfume the air of the kitchen. The anchovies I can smell a little bit. Don't worry, this is not going to give you a fishy taste. Anchovies are just really a flavor element that's going to add some depth to our dish. Put in all of your veggies. Just stir that around. Keep stirring that regularly so that everything gets coated in the oil and everything starts to saute down. Season it at this point with a little bit of salt to bring out all the moisture of the veggies. It's going to help it sweat down. Keep stirring it for about 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, you really want all of those carrots and onions and celery to really start to soften, break down, get all of the moisture out of them. Keep stirring so that you don't burn it. Alright, so this is looking really good. It's starting to really caramelize beautifully. What we want is this rich sort of color. Not burnt on the onions, but a little bit of caramelization is really nice. The carrots, as you can see, are basically all but dissolved down. The celery is really soft. The garlic is soft. The anchovies have disappeared. At this point, add your tomato paste in, the full can. Stir that around. Lower the heat a little bit so that the tomato paste doesn't burn. We want to start getting all that moisture out of there, breaking down the tomato paste. If you put the stock in first and then the tomato paste, it's going to be more difficult to incorporate everything. That's why I like to add the tomato paste first. The heat is starting to break it down. You're getting this beautiful, rich red color. That's going to give us all that flavor and depth. Stirring that. It's not time for the chicken stock yet, because first I want to know exactly how much to put in. This depends on how much beef you end up with. So what I do is first I put the beef back in with all the veggies and the tomato. I like to use some of that fat that's rendered down. There's not too much in there. It's going to help deglaze the pot right away. So stir that around. Coat everything with that beautiful rich tomato paste. Now we go in with our chicken stock. So we want just enough to cover the top of the beef. And that's why I like to add the chicken stock at the very end, because that way you know exactly how much you're going to need. Nothing goes to waste and you don't end up with a really watered down bolognese. At this point we season with a little bit more salt. Just a bit, not too much. If it needs more salt later on, you can put, but you can never take away. Season in batches. I like to put a good amount of freshly cracked black pepper. 1.5 tablespoons at least. It's going to give a nice kick. And at this point you want to add your fresh thyme. Thyme is not that strong of an herb. It's like oregano's mild cousin, but it adds such a beautiful earthiness to this dish. It's going to give such an amazing flavor, way better than any parsley or basil. Basil will just disintegrate in this sauce. You won't even taste it. This is going to add such a beautiful depth of flavor to it. So try to use thyme if you've never used it before, if you can get your hands on it. Stir that around just to incorporate a little bit more. Go in with your chili flakes now. This is purely to taste, people. Purely preference. I like it quite spicy, so I go in with quite a bit. Put the heat to low. Take your spoon out. Put a lid on it. And now simmer this for at least 1 hour, stirring occasionally so that you make sure the bottom of the pot doesn't burn. Okay, so this has been cooking away for about an hour, and you can see that it's just completely started to become beautifully rich and thick, and you want it to be a really nice thick consistency, nothing worse than a wet bolognese. And a trick, if you still have quite a bit of moisture at the top and that chicken stock hasn't reduced down, then just take the lid off of it for the last 10-15 minutes. Keep it on a gentle low simmer, and it'll help a lot of that moisture evaporate from the chicken stock. So this is just about ready. We just want to give it a little bit of a taste. That's perfect. I don't need any more salt. It's super creamy, super rich. All of the thyme in the dish is completely popping out. All the garlic and the carrot is really sweet. You could serve this with a zucchini noodle. You can serve it with sweet potato gnocchi. You can even serve it on its own with just a spoon. Enjoy it. I hope you like it. And don't forget to subscribe.